This is one of the most disturbing series of stories ever shared online. It came from someone who claimed to work in search and rescue, deep in the forests. At first, the stories sounded normal. Missing hikers, long nights, bad weather. But then, he started mentioning things that didn't make sense, things that don't appear in official reports, things they're told not to talk about. And if you ever find yourself alone in the woods, there's one rule you should remember. If you see something that doesn't belong there, don't go near it. When I first joined search and rescue, I thought I understood what the job would be. Lost hikers, injured campers, maybe the occasional recovery. Long hours, bad weather, and difficult terrain. That was the expectation. And for a while, that's exactly what it was. The work was hard, but it made sense. Everything had a pattern. Everything had a reason. But there was one thing no one ever mentioned. Something that didn't fit into any report, any training, or any kind of logic. The stairs. It sounds strange even saying it out loud, but they're exactly what they sound like. Staircases, just sitting there in the middle of the forest. No building attached, no ruins nearby, no sign that anything was ever there. Just steps leading up to nothing. The first time I saw one, I honestly thought it had to be a joke. We were deep in the woods searching for a missing kid, about 8 years old, last seen wandering away from a campsite just before sunset. His parents were frantic, and the deeper we went into the forest, the quieter everything became. We'd been hiking for hours, calling his name, scanning the ground, checking every possible direction. Nothing. No footprints, no signs, just trees, stretching endlessly in every direction. Then suddenly, one of the guys ahead of me stopped. No warning, no signal. He just froze in place. At first I thought he'd found something important, maybe a clue, maybe the kid. So I moved up beside him, but instead of looking down, he was staring straight ahead. That's when I saw it. A staircase, about 10 steps high, standing completely alone in a small clearing. No rails, no walls, no surrounding structure. Just steps rising up and ending in empty air. For a moment, my brain tried to explain it away. Maybe it was part of an old building. Maybe there used to be a cabin there. But there was nothing else. No broken wood, no foundation, no debris, not even disturbed ground. It looked like it had just appeared there. I remember letting out a quiet laugh without thinking and saying, "What is this? Some kind of art project?" But no one else reacted. No one even looked at me. That's when something shifted. One of the senior guys stepped closer and grabbed my arm, tight. Not casually, not as a joke, but firm, like he was stopping me from doing something dangerous. He didn't even look at me. His eyes stayed locked on the stairs. Then he said very quietly, "Don't go near it." There was something in his voice that didn't feel normal. It wasn't just caution. It wasn't just concern. It was certainty, the kind that doesn't leave room for questions. So I didn't argue. I didn't step forward. We just stood there for a few seconds, and then he pulled me back. We turned, and we kept moving, like nothing had happened. But it didn't feel like nothing. The rest of the search that day felt different, quieter, heavier, like something had changed, even though no one said it out loud. That night, back at base, I couldn't stop thinking about it. It didn't make sense, and that's what bothered me the most. So I asked one of the other rangers, someone who had been doing this longer than me. I expected some kind of explanation, a story, anything. But he just looked at me for a moment and said, "You'll see them again." That was it. No details, no explanation. Just that. And he was right. We kept finding them. Not every day, but often enough that it stopped feeling like coincidence. No matter how deep into the forest we went, no matter how remote the location was, Eventually, there would be one. Sometimes close to trails, sometimes miles away from anything. Sometimes hidden between trees, sometimes out in the open like they wanted to be seen. But always the same. Always alone. And always intact. That's the part that really stays with you. They're always clean. No dirt, no leaves, no signs of weathering. Even when everything around them is rotting, collapsing, or being taken over by nature, the stairs remain untouched. Like time doesn't affect them, like they exist outside of everything else. And the longer you work out there, the more you start to notice something else. People don't talk about them. Not in reports, not in briefings, not even casually. It's like an unspoken rule. Everyone knows they're there, but no one wants to acknowledge it. Because the moment you do, you have to ask why. And there is no answer. But there is one rule. One thing that every single person follows, no matter how experienced they are. You don't go near them. You don't touch them. You don't even stand too close. And under no circumstances, no matter what you think you see, no matter what you think you hear, you never climb them. Because whatever they are, they're not meant for us. If you spend enough time in the woods, you start to understand the sounds. At first, everything feels unfamiliar. Every movement catches your attention. Every noise feels like it could be something important. But over time, you learn to filter it out. You recognize patterns. The wind moving through the trees, animals shifting through the brush, branches cracking under weight. Even silence has its own rhythm. After a while, nothing really surprises you anymore, except for one thing. One sound that never feels normal, no matter how long you've been out there. Voices. We were called out for a missing woman. She was an experienced hiker, mid-30s, someone who knew what she was doing. That made the situation worse, not better. People like that don't just disappear without a reason. She'd been gone for 2 days by the time we got there. No contact, no signal, no trace. The area she was hiking in wasn't easy, but it wasn't impossible either. Still, something about it didn't feel right from the beginning. We split into teams and started sweeping the area, moving in a grid pattern, checking every possible path she could have taken. About an hour into the search, the forest had gone quiet. Not completely silent, but quieter than it should have been. The kind of quiet that makes you more aware of your own breathing. That's when I heard it. Someone calling my name. Clear. Close. Not distant. Not distorted. It sounded like it was coming from just a few feet away. Hey, over here. I stopped immediately. My first instinct was to respond, to call back. But something held me back, because I recognized the voice. It was my partner. But he was standing right next to me. I turned to look at him, expecting some kind of reaction, maybe confusion, maybe a joke. But he wasn't smiling. He wasn't even moving. He had heard it too. I could see it in his face. We just looked at each other for a second, and neither of us said anything. There was no need to. We both understood that something wasn't right. Then it came again. Same direction. Same distance. Come here. I found something. Same voice. Perfect match. Same tone. Same rhythm. If I hadn't been looking directly at him, I would have believed it completely. He grabbed my arm hard enough to snap me out of it and said quietly, "That's not me." Not panicked. Not loud. Just certain. That same kind of certainty I'd heard before, the kind that doesn't leave room for doubt. We didn't respond. We didn't call back. We didn't move toward it. Instead, we started backing away. Slowly. Carefully. Trying not to make too much noise. But the voice didn't stop. It kept calling. Still using his voice. Still sounding close. Still sounding real. And the strangest part was, it followed us. Not directly behind us, not chasing, but always just out of sight. always just far enough away that you couldn't pinpoint where it was coming from. Every time we changed direction, it adjusted. Every time we slowed down, it felt like it got closer. It matched our movements in a way that didn't make sense, like it knew exactly where we were, exactly how we were moving. And it kept calling. Calm, patient, almost inviting, like it was waiting for us to make a mistake. We didn't answer. We didn't acknowledge it. We just kept moving until eventually it stopped. No fade, no distance, just silence, like it had never been there at all. We didn't talk about it right away, not while we were still out there. We just continued the search like nothing had happened. But something had changed. You could feel it. That quiet feeling in the forest didn't go away. If anything, it got heavier. We searched until dark, but we never found the woman. No sign of her. No clue. Nothing that explained where she had gone. A week later, another team picked up the search in a different area. And that's when they found her, about 15 miles from where she was last seen. That alone didn't make sense. Even for an experienced hiker, covering that kind of distance in that terrain without leaving any trace is almost impossible. But that wasn't the part that stayed with us. What they found with her was worse. Her radio was still on, and it was transmitting, not a signal, not static. A loop, a recording of her voice, calling for help, over and over again. Same words, same tone, same rhythm, perfectly clear, like it had been captured and was just being replayed. And that's when it really started to sink in. The voice we heard that day, the one calling us, the one using my partner's voice. It wasn't random. It wasn't an echo. And it definitely wasn't him. It was something else. Something that knew exactly what it needed to sound like. And more importantly, something that wanted us to follow it. We got a call about a man who had been spotted deep inside a restricted area of the forest. That alone was unusual. People don't just wander into those zones by accident. They're clearly marked, difficult to access, and far from any normal trail. According to the report, he wasn't moving, wasn't signaling for help, wasn't doing anything at all. Just standing there. No gear, no backpack, no supplies. Nothing that suggested he was prepared to be out there for more than a few hours. And yet, whoever had seen him said he looked like he had been there for a long time. When we arrived in the area, it took us a while to reach the location. The terrain was rough, dense, and quiet, in a way that didn't feel natural. The kind of quiet that presses in on you. As we got closer, one of the guys spotted him first. He was exactly where we were told he would be, standing in a small clearing, completely still. At first, it almost looked like he wasn't real, like he didn't belong in that environment. There was no movement, no shifting of weight, no reaction to the sounds around him, just a figure, fixed in place. When we approached him, he didn't react, not even slightly. No glance in our direction, no sign that he even noticed we were there. His eyes were focused on something far ahead of him, something we couldn't see. We tried calling out to him, asked if he was okay, asked if he needed help. There was nothing. No response, no acknowledgement. It was like talking to someone who wasn't there anymore, not unconscious, just absent. We moved closer, carefully, unsure of how he might react once we got within reach. But even then, nothing changed. No sudden movement, no resistance. When one of us gently touched his arm, he didn't pull away. He didn't even look. It was like his body was there, but his attention was somewhere else entirely. Eventually, we guided him away from where he was standing. He came with us without any resistance, no struggle, no hesitation. He just walked when we moved him, like he was following something automatic rather than making a decision. The entire time, He didn't speak. Not once. No questions. No confusion. No reaction to anything around him. Just silence. When we got him back, medical staff checked him immediately. Physically, there was nothing wrong. No injuries. No dehydration. No signs that he had been exposed to the elements for too long. His vitals were normal. His body was fine. But mentally, something was clearly off. They tried asking him simple questions. What his name was, where he came from, how long he had been out there. Nothing. He didn't respond to any of it. He just sat there, staring forward, the same way he had been in the forest. At first, they thought it might be shock or some kind of psychological break. That can happen, especially in isolated environments. But even in those cases, there's usually some kind of reaction, confusion, fear, panic, something. With him, there was nothing. Just that same distant stare. Eventually, someone asked a different question. What were you looking at? For a moment, nothing happened. No change in expression, no shift in posture. It seemed like he wasn't going to respond, just like before. But then, slowly, he blinked. And for the first time since we found him, he spoke. Just once. I thought it was a person. That was it. No explanation. No follow-up. Nothing else. After that, he went completely silent again. Like whatever part of him had answered, that question had shut down immediately afterward. A few days later, we heard something that didn't make sense. He was gone. Not discharged. Not transferred. Just gone. No paperwork. No record of release. No indication that he had left on his own or been taken anywhere. It was like he had simply disappeared, and no one seemed to have a clear answer as to how or when it happened. That didn't sit right with any of us. So we went back to the exact location where we had found him. Same route, same clearing. We wanted to see what he had been staring at, what he thought was a person. But when we got there was nothing. No markings, no disturbance, no sign that anything had ever been there at all. Just an empty clearing, completely still, completely normal. And somehow, that made it worse. Because whatever he saw, whatever made him stand there, silent for who knows how long, it wasn't something we could find. And it definitely wasn't something we could explain. One thing you learn quickly in search and rescue is how far someone can realistically travel. It's one of the first things you're trained to understand. Distance, terrain, weather, physical condition, everything plays a role. There are patterns to it. Even when someone is panicked, injured, or disoriented, there are still limits. The human body can only go so far, especially in rough terrain. You learn to estimate those limits, to build search zones based on them. And most of the time, those estimates are accurate. They help you narrow things down. They help you find people. But every once in a while, something happens that doesn't fit those patterns. Something that breaks those limits completely. We were tracking a missing teenager, 16 years old. He had gone out on what was supposed to be a short hike and never came back. His family reported him missing that same evening, and we were out there early the next morning. At first, the search was straightforward. We found his trail almost immediately. His footprints were clear, easy to follow. The ground was soft enough to hold impressions, and he hadn't been trying to hide anything. Each step was visible, consistent, moving in a steady direction. It looked like he had just kept walking. We followed the trail for hours. It didn't branch off, didn't circle back, just a straight path deeper into the forest. That wasn't unusual by itself. Sometimes people get turned around and keep moving without realizing how far they've gone. But there was something about the way the footprints were spaced that felt off. Too even, too controlled, like he wasn't panicking, like he wasn't rushing, just walking. Then suddenly, the footprints stopped. Not faded, not scattered, not lost in harder ground. Stopped. One step, and then nothing. No sign of a turn. No indication that he had changed direction. No marks suggesting he had fallen, been dragged, or climbed over anything. It was like he had taken one final step, and then simply wasn't there anymore. We expanded the search immediately, checked every direction, spread out, looking for anything we might have missed. Broken branches, disturbed soil, anything that could explain where he had gone. But there was nothing. No disturbance, no continuation, no signs at all. Just empty forest, as if the trail had never existed. We stayed in that area for hours, combing through every inch of ground. It didn't make sense. Even if he had somehow changed direction, there should have been something, some kind of trace. But there wasn't. It was like the forest had just erased him. Then the radio crackled. One of the guys from another team had found something. The location he gave didn't make sense. It was far outside our current search zone, farther than we had calculated anyone could realistically reach in that amount of time. But we went anyway. It took us a while to get there. The terrain was difficult, uneven and dense. The kind of ground that slows you down even when you're moving carefully. And the entire time, one thought kept coming back. There was no way he could have made it this far. When we reached the clearing, we saw it immediately. The kid's shoe. Just one. Sitting in the middle of the clearing. No footprints leading to it. No disturbed ground. No drag marks. Nothing. It wasn't hidden. It wasn't caught in branches or pushed under leaves. It was placed. Right in the open. Like it had been set there deliberately. And it was clean. Not covered in dirt or debris. Not worn down from movement. Just there. We checked the entire area around it. Every direction. Every possible path. There were no additional tracks. No signs of struggle. No indication that he had been there long enough to leave any kind of trace. Just the shoe and empty space around it. The distance between where we lost his footprints and where that shoe was found was nearly 10 miles. 10 miles. In that terrain, in that time, it wasn't just unlikely, it was impossible. We never found the second shoe. We never found any more tracks. And we never found the kid. The case stayed open for a long time, but eventually, it went cold. Like so many others. And that wasn't the only time something like that happened. There were other searches, other people, other trails that ended too abruptly, other items found miles away from where they should have been. Always the same pattern. Clear movement, sudden stop, and then something appearing somewhere it couldn't have reached. At first, you try to explain it. You tell yourself there must be something you're missing. Some detail you didn't notice. But after a while, after seeing it happen more than once, you stop trying to make it fit into logic, because it doesn't. There are rules out there, patterns that usually hold true, but sometimes those rules just don't apply. There are places in the woods that don't feel right. It's not something you can measure or prove, and it's definitely not something you'll find written in any official report. But when you spend enough time out there, you start to recognize it. A shift in the atmosphere, a kind of quiet that feels heavier than it should. You can't explain it, you just know. And when you feel it, you're supposed to trust it. Because most of the time, that feeling is the only warning you get. We were searching for a missing couple when it happened. 2 men, both experienced enough to handle themselves outdoors. They had gone off trail, which already made things more complicated. We were moving through a dense section of forest, checking areas that hadn't been covered yet, when one of the newer guys called us over. There was something in his voice, uncertain, but urgent. When we reached him, he was standing at the edge of a clearing, staring down at something on the ground. It was a hole, about 6 feet wide, perfectly circular. The edges were clean, almost too clean, like it hadn't been formed naturally. There was no loose soil around it, no signs of digging, no debris. Just an opening, straight down into darkness. We stepped closer, trying to get a better look. The inside was completely black, not just shadowed, but empty. Like the light itself wasn't reaching it. We shined our flashlights into it, expecting to at least see a bottom or some kind of reflection. But there was nothing. No surface, no depth, just darkness that didn't seem to end. One of the guys picked up a rock and dropped it in. We all waited. A second passed, then another. No sound, no impact, nothing. That alone should have been enough to make us leave. But before anyone said anything, we heard it. A voice. Faint at first, barely noticeable, coming from somewhere inside the hole, calling for help. It sounded like a woman, weak, strained, desperate. At first, no one moved. We just stood there, listening, trying to understand what we were hearing. But it didn't make sense. The missing couple we were searching for were both men. There was no reason for a woman to be out there. No reports, no indication, nothing that connected to that voice. But it kept calling, soft at first, then clearer. "Help me!" The tone wasn't loud. It wasn't panicked. It was steady, almost controlled, but desperate enough to pull your attention. It sounded real. Too real. And that's what made it dangerous. One of the newer guys stepped closer. He said we had to help her, that we couldn't just stand there and ignore it. Before he could move any further, we grabbed him, pulled him back. Hard, he fought us. Actually fought. Said she was down there. Said we had to do something. His voice started changing, getting more desperate, more urgent, like he was being pulled toward it. We didn't let go. We dragged him away from the edge, step by step, and as soon as we started pulling him back, the voice stopped, not fading, not weakening, just gone. Like it had never been there. We didn't go back to the hole after that. We marked the location, logged the coordinates, and moved out of the area. No one argued. No one questioned it. Whatever that was, we weren't equipped to deal with it. And deep down, everyone knew that getting closer wouldn't help anyone. The next day, we came back. Same team, same coordinates, same path. But when we reached the clearing, there was nothing there. No hole, no disturbance, no mark on the ground, just forest. Completely normal, like it had never existed at all. And that's the part that stays with you. Because whatever that voice was, whatever was down there, it didn't just disappear. It was never meant to be found. After a while, you learn the rules, the ones nobody writes down. Don't approach the stairs. Don't follow the voices. Don't go off trail alone. And if something feels wrong, leave. Immediately. Because whatever is out there, it doesn't follow our rules. And if you stay too long, you might start to feel like the forest is watching you back. If you want more stories like this, subscribe, because there are a lot more that haven't been told yet.